I'm Fox 10 investigator Justin Lum coming to you from Phoenix, Arizona. Another development in what seems like deja vu in the case of Lori Vallow, the former Arizonan and so-called doomsday mother accused of murdering her two children, JJ Vallow and Tylee Ryan, as well as of conspiring with her co-defendant Chad Daybell in the murder of his first wife, Tammy Daybell. Vallow's case was put on hold for about a month because, once again, the court needed to determine if she was mentally fit to proceed with trial. Back in June of 2021, Vallow was deemed incompetent and placed in the custody of Idaho's Department of Health and Welfare for about 10 months before being deemed competent again. The back and forth has put stress on the grandparents of JJ Vallow. Kay and Larry Woodcock spoke to me about this latest update.
I think it proves what we have felt all along, that Lori doesn't have a mental issue. Lori's got a religious issue. And so finally, somebody has seen the difference. And whoever made that decision, Judge Boyce, the attorneys, whoever made that decision, I think personally, I'm very happy with it. And I know Kay is. And I think she's been hiding behind a veil of a religious belief, if that's what you want to call it. But that's just my opinion.
Religious zealotry, and she's so caught up in it, and it's so outlandish, the beliefs they have, that they couldn't, I believe the doctors in Idaho couldn't discern between religion and delusions. And so this doctor, I read about him, and he obviously knows what to do. He obviously knew exactly where to shoot, and he got it.
I would like to know, I'm curious about your thoughts going into the mental competency review. Obviously it was sealed, but I'm sure you guys were asking, well, I wonder what's going to come out of this. And here we go, 1 week later, decisions made.
Absolutely. You know, this has been a long 3 years, and a long 4 years for us. And, you know, there's times when I feel like, you know, am I going to live to see the end of this? And I really hope that we are now heading down a path that maybe we can see some closure to this. I don't think without a doubt that they're both going to prison, if not pay the ultimate price. And as I've said so many times, you know, this is strictly about, from my perspective, I just want to close. I want some closure with JJ. And
this is another step.
It's another step closer.
I don't know exactly how everything will happen from this point, but hopefully we'll learn about that in the next day or so. And as far as when they're going to reschedule, or when they're even going to, whenever they're going to set a hearing to schedule the trial or whatever, you know, they have to set a hearing to set another hearing to set another hearing, and it's just ridiculous. But anyway, it's part of the deal.
And we've learned and we've come to accept that. And we knew going in that, you know, this was going to be a drawn out affair. We knew it. We accepted this, but also it's good to finally see some definitive rulings coming out, and we're very, very, very delighted about that. I mean, you know, just get us closer and set a date, and then let's go with it.
Are you confident that this doesn't happen again, that competency isn't questioned again?
I believe if it does come into question again, that doctor that the state is talking to or whatever. I believe that, like I said, he can see right through it, and so he cuts through it all and nailed it and nailed it. I mean, we don't have any inside information at all, but I mean, I'm just saying, obviously that's what happened. Otherwise, the judge wouldn't have ruled the way he did.
Well, for whatever reason he ruled that way, I'm just so happy that this is one more closure on a specific item.
One more nail in their coffin.
Yeah, absolutely.
Of course, the focus for you two is JJ. He should be 10 years old right now, correct?
Yeah.
And yet here we are, and you've never had a funeral for him. And I'm sure you have planned it, every detail. And it's a beautiful vision in your mind of how you want to remember him. But the bottom line is it can't happen right now. Just what's keeping you going? Is it justice, knowing that at some point, someday, you will be able to physically lay him to rest?
What keeps us going is we have many things that keep us going. It's I mean, top priority is having his services, and Tylee's as far as we can
As
be
far as
involved
we're
in that.
allowed to.
And but just that's the top priority, but then the justice and there's just so many things and wanting to learn everything that happened, and not that we'll ever be able to wrap our head around why.
We'll probably never
It's just
know
sex
why.
and greed, but and you intertwine that with religion that's over the top, then I mean, we can't understand that, because it's not understandable unless you're one of them, one of Chad and Lori's group or whatever they call them. And anyway, it's good. We have many things to do. We can't stop. We won't stop. And we are just patient. We don't have a choice. So it's better to be patient than to be agitated all the time and with a knot in your stomach every day. So we just wait.
Well, we have so much support in our support groups. It makes our life so much easier. We get so much help, and through the counseling and through the prayers of friends and the world, and everybody wants to see justice served. I guess that is the most consistent message that we get, is everybody prays for justice. And I truly believe that in the end, no matter what defense they try to present, they'll be found guilty. It's just obvious, and justice will be served. How that justice is served is not up for Kay and I to decide. It is for the judicial system to decide that. But we go on with our lives and every day, and we pray every day, and we get upset with each other because certain things just light our fires. But we're living through it. And through the support groups that we have, that we couldn't do without, it's made our lives so much easier.
I know you are looking forward to trial and, just like you said, closure, getting justice, laying JJ to rest. This story is more than just about religion or lust, whatever was going on behind the scenes between these two co-defendants and whatever was allegedly plotted. All that will be brought to light in this trial with
Absolutely
luminous evidence and documents and footage. I mean, the data is just so much that's going to be brought out. But how much do you guys think this story also points to a breakdown or potential issue with law enforcement. When you point back to Arizona and Chandler police, do you still think about how more could have been done when that body camera footage replays over and over again of Kay, your brother, Charles, pleading with Gilbert police? And then what happens with Chandler police after he's shot to death? Just, that's got to be something that is discussed as, well, what if?
Well, absolutely. And it has, we have discussed that at length many times. And, but that again, that is something that I don't concern myself with at this time. I don't have the energy to right now. When it's time, then I'll deal with it. But right now, we just, everything is set on the trial and getting those two squared away. And then we'll worry about getting Lori down to Arizona and getting that done. And hopefully they'll find more evidence about Chad, and he'll be implicated in a conspiracy role in Charles's murder.
Absolutely.
That's what I am sure he was involved. I just, everything in me says he was involved. He called the funeral home that night, you know, wanted to see about sending his ashes to Iowa. And so we know he was involved.
Absolutely.
We just don't know to the extent, but regardless, if he's involved, he's just as guilty as she is and Alex was for pulling the trigger. If Alex pulled the trigger, it could have been Lori. We don't know.
It could have been, there was two shots fired. Who fired one, who fired the other?
Yeah.
Justice for JJ, Tylee, and Tammy, obviously top of mind and always in, you know, the national media coverage of this case. But you guys really feel a lot is left undone here in Arizona, getting justice for Charles.
Absolutely.
And even Brandon Boudreaux, because prosecutors haven't decided if they're going to charge Lori for her alleged role in his attempted murder in Gilbert. So that's still there on the table that we've yet to been updated on. So just tell me, like, with Charles, how thankful are you, even with all the tragedy that's happened, how thankful are you that he sort of laid out a digital footprint of what he was seeing and what was going on?
He was totally in love with Lori, and it took a while for him to really just grasp the I don't know if just to grasp how she was going off keel and just going off and spinning off in her own direction. And I mean, he would want this to be done this way. He would want the kids and Tammy's trials first, and take care of the kids and the woman and the lady.
Absolutely.
And then you come talk, then it's my turn. And so that's just kind of, this is the first chapter or the first half of the book. And then the second half of the book will be the
some closure,
disposition of Charles's case, and all the other ones that may come from it.
I want to tell you something, and this may not sound exactly right, but I am so glad that the kids lost their lives in Rexburg, Idaho, than if it would have happened in Arizona, because I don't think we would have ever had the support, the involvement. Look, we've got to know the Idaho officers that are involved in this. And I am telling you, my heart goes out to them. It truly does, because they have taken this case 100% to their heart and to their soul. And it plays on their mind. We know that. And I'm not saying that Arizona wouldn't have done the right thing, but from the way that Charles's issues were handled by the police there, if it was going to happen, although I don't think it's a mark on Idaho by no means, I'm so glad that the support Kay and I get, the involvement for this case is done by the people where it happened at. And Kay and I have said so many times, you know, we really do truly love the state of Idaho. We love so many people there. We have so many friends there now that are behind the scene that nobody ever hears of, that just offers so much support to us and to the kids. And it's truly amazing. It's truly amazing. And I thank God for them every day.
I also interviewed Dr. Tess Neal, a licensed clinical and forensic psychologist who teaches at ASU. Here's our conversation about, you guessed it, competency.
We've talked before about Lori Vallow's mental competency, and here we are. Feels like it's been a long time. It has been the second time she's been deemed competent, fit to proceed, although this pause didn't necessarily mean she was incompetent again and committed to a state hospital. Just what are your initial thoughts coming out of this development?
Yeah, I know some people have questions about, you know, how often can somebody be found incompetent to stand trial? Could it happen again? And it could happen again. And it could happen again because it's an issue that has to be raised by the court anytime there's a bona fide doubt about competency, and it's not time limited. So anytime throughout the entire trial proceeding, even later, you know, if she is convicted of a capital crime and if she's on death row, she has to be competent to be executed if we get, you know, if it proceeds that far. And so this issue of competence is, it's not time limited, and a person has to be competent all the way through the legal process. And that issue is rooted in our Constitution. It's rooted in the Sixth Amendment, which guarantees all of us a right to a fair trial. We have the right to be present and defend ourselves against accusations by the government, and that's what this idea of competency is rooted in. It's rooted in protection for us. There's also Supreme Court case law establishing that, consistent with that Sixth Amendment, that defendants have the right to have sufficient present ability to consult with their lawyer and with a rational degree of understanding and a rational as well as factual understanding of the case against them.
So much has been sealed within Lori's case regarding competency, but she last week had this competency evaluation review hearing. What would be the basics included into a review? What would be the main points that would be focused on?
Every defendant is different, and so, you know, the particular issues that might have been going on in this particular case might be different than a different case, but the foundation is similar, and it is sealed, so we don't know the specifics of what's going on. But in general, there are 4 pieces to an evaluation for competence. So first, forensic evaluators assess for whether there's a mental disorder present. Then they also look for the defendant's competence-related abilities, their functional abilities that are related to competence questions. Third, they look for a causal link between any mental disorder and any functional deficits related to competency proceedings. And then fourth, they do an assessment of how any competency problems might affect that defendant's functioning throughout the trial process, how it might affect their behaviors or their understanding of what's going on. So with regard to the mental functioning piece, forensic evaluators, they assess for malingering or faking, which is a situation that comes up with some frequency in forensic evaluations. And so forensic psychologists know to look for this. In addition to looking for things like the presence of formal thought disorder, like the presence of delusions or hallucinations. These are fixed false beliefs or hearing or seeing things that don't actually exist. Problems with rate of thinking. Sometimes people's thinking gets very quick and it can interfere with rationality. They look for things like concentration or memory problems. They look for intellectual disability. And to assess for those things, evaluators can use psychological testing. They often do use psychological testing. They do interviews with the defendant. They look at medical and mental health records. They can look at justice system records, collateral interviews, biological tests sometimes, like drug tests and things that might be affecting somebody's rational thinking. They can look at employment records and so forth. When you're talking specifically about competence-related abilities, what they're assessing for is a person's general understanding of the legal proceeding, the arrest process, and those sorts of things. They're also looking for appreciation. So whether the person or the degree to which the person understands how those processes, the arrest process, the trial process, the courtroom proceedings, how all of those have unfolded in their own case and how they're likely to unfold in the future, and their own, how that person's behaviors affect what's going to happen in their case. So they look at their reasoning abilities, whether they can consult with counsel, whether they can help counsel plan a defense strategy, if they can manage their behaviors in court, if they can consider rationally about whether to plead or how to plead, and whether to testify, pros and cons of testimony, how to challenge witnesses, and so forth.
Wow. So just for context, for people who are just learning about this case, investigators say Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell believed that they were part of this. They were here to prepare for the second coming of Jesus Christ. So then you're entering like the religious aspects. They felt that they had to rid the world of zombies and dark spirits, these terms that rarely are used in the court of law. And it's just such a bizarre case. So when you talk about these religious or spiritual beliefs they allegedly had, is that what you mean when you point to potential hallucinations? Because, you know, she had said she had gotten messages from Christ and she felt like she was this translated being. All allegations according to court documents that just seem so bizarre, yet something like this can really lead to incompetency?
Whether they rise to the level of mental illness or whether they're impacting competency right now, that's kind of the question that the court has been grappling with the first evaluation and the restoration of competency process, and then the second one again. And it might come up again in the future, right? There's no guarantee that it won't. And so I don't know about in her particular case, but the broader question of whether delusions that have a religious component can impact people's competency, yeah, they can. There are plenty of cases where people have strong religious beliefs that might morph into something that goes beyond a traditional religious belief. They can go into kind of a delusional belief process or a fixed false belief about things that aren't. This is actually very common with psychotic illnesses. And so there's strong history in other cases where things like that have happened.
Yet this question of competency has never come up with her co-defendant, Chad Daybell, who was believed to have taught her these ideas. She has no history of any criminal record, mental illness that we know of. She turned herself into to Community Bridges for an evaluation way back in 2019. She was discharged immediately. So some would say, JJ Vallow's grandparents have said she's malingering. Does any lack of history of any mental illness or mental health issues possibly indicate that she's malingered this whole time through this whole competency question?
Yeah, the question of malingering it's a perennial question in this case and every case. And it is something it's reasonable to have those questions. And we do have good, the field of forensic psychology does have good tools to help differentiate what's real and what's faked. And they're pretty sophisticated and they have pretty good psychometric properties. I don't know if they were used in this case. I don't know if they were used in this evaluation. Just in general, we do have that capacity to help answer that question of whether somebody's faking. And in the historical pieces you were talking about here about how in this case there is maybe no history of mental illness, that typically in cases where people are incompetent to stand trial, typically there is a history, a record of typically severe mental illness, and even often there's previous findings of incompetency. And so in most cases the pattern and the history is different than in this case. So this case does it does have some unique elements that make it different than other typical cases. That's not proof of malingering, but it is a different situation. And it is notable, or I don't know if it's notable, but I also find it of interest that if there's two defendants in this case and they had similar belief patterns, if that's, I don't even know if that's true, but if that's true, then it is of interest that one of these cases has these competency issues being questioned and the other case doesn't, although it could, right? There's no, like we've said, this issue could be raised at any point in the trial process for any defendant.
So we can expect this to be brought up again whenever this trial happens. Last question, how long can a competency question really stunt the pathway to a trial? I mean, could this go on for years if we see an evaluation happen again, if we see a repeat of this situation for Vallow?
I don't know that we can expect that it will happen again. We can expect that it might happen again, but there's no guarantee that it will. It could. There are cases where people are never restored to competency, and there is good case law about this, about what to do in cases like that. In the reason why this is important, it's rooted in that Sixth Amendment issue that we talked about, that we have a constitutional right to make sure that if we're being accused of something by the government, that there's a process, that there's a fair process, that we're going to get justice in our cases. And so in this case and in other cases, the reason that this competency issue matters, it's twofold. One is it safeguards the accuracy of trials, right? So we want to make sure that people who are found guilty are guilty and that people who are actually innocent are not convicted of a crime. And so if a person is not mentally able to participate in their defense, it raises the risk that somebody could be unjustly convicted. So that's part of the reason why the legal system cares so much about this issue of competency. And the second reason is to preserve the dignity and the integrity of the legal process. So the process itself and the way it unfolds, the proceedings themselves, the court has an interest in making sure that it's perceived as fair by society and that the people who are part of it are treated fairly. So that's the reason there's such a focus on this issue of competency.
So what's next? We are waiting on a ruling from Judge Stephen Boyce. Will he grant Chad Daybell's motion to sever his case from Lori Vallow's? Boyce has denied the motion before. Currently, Daybell and Vallow are joined for their murder trial already, pushed back from January 2023 as we wait for a new trial date. Please like and subscribe to our channel for updates. I'm Justin Lum for Fox 10 Investigates.